Hello and welcome to the Luscious Living Podcast. I'm your host, Celine Vilgan, holistic nutrition consultant and the founder of Luscious Living, where personal growth meets wellness. Ladies, we've heard that PMS is a feminine curse, and it's time to bust that myth. Did you know that your period is actually a sacred and beautiful time for you? It doesn't feel like that when you have symptoms of cramps, bloating, nausea, headaches, and more. And I'm here to tell you it does not have to be that way. Did you know that you can use nutrition to ease those symptoms? Did you know that you have 4 different phases of your menstrual cycle? Yes, you can learn to optimize each of these phases and really understand your body and understand why you're more motivated in some times of the month and more excited to work out or more wanting to stay in, or you are just more intuitive in certain phases as well. Learn to understand your body, love yourself even more. This is all talked about in my best-selling book, The Painless Period Guide. Grab a copy for you and a friend. The link to purchase is in the description. Welcome everyone to the Luscious Living Podcast. I am so excited to have Amy here on the show today. I was on the Wilderness Instagram page and I reached out and I said, who can I interview about this topic that's been more and more important for me and more coming to light as we increase the conversation about self-reliance and really looking at solutions to be stewards of the planet. So of course I have Amy here with us. She is a conservationist and a nutritional practitioner. She's an earth advocate. And we're going to go into what that all means and a bit of her journey. And we're going to be talking about sustainable practices with hunting, and actually that hunting and that I even use sustainability and hunting together is not an oxymoron. And we're going to talk about why. So Amy, I want to warmly welcome you to the show, and maybe you can do a much better introduction of yourself than I just did of how would you describe what you do on the planet?
Thank you, Celine, for such a nice intro, and you did encapsulate it well. I am kind of an outdoors enthusiast and a conservationist. I'm a nutritional therapy practitioner at the Atma Clinic in Lawrence, Kansas. And clinically, professionally, that means I am trying to reverse the upsets that our industrialized, westernized, highly processed, high sugar tendencies have done to our cells. So I'm largely working to reverse the damaging effects of the industrialized food world that we largely live in. And it's incredible work when we're just looking at optimizing the breakdown and absorption of nutrients from a traditional nutrient-dense diet. The effect is phenomenal. So that's very rewarding professionally, and as much as possible outside of the clinic, I am spending my time in nature, in natural spaces. So professionally, I'm trying to get people back to what they're biologically or cellularly intended for with food and lifestyle. And a big part of what we're biologically intended for is to spend most of our time outdoors, right? So we get different kind of nourishment from the vitamin nature vitamin, so when I'm not at the clinic, I'm out getting as many nature vitamins as I possibly can.
We live very similar lives. I'm not sure if you know, but I'm a holistic nutritionist and really focusing on hormone balance. And all of my time, if I can spend the rest of the time outside, that's what I do. And you have a very unique approach to, and I guess, activity outside, and that is of hunting. Mm-hmm. And I would love to know, so I mean, maybe 2 years ago, until 2 years ago, I was like, hunting is bad. And I just thought of trophy hunting. And I live in Alberta. It's definitely it's a great place for hunting as well. But it took some education, and started with Stephen Ranella and Meat Eater on Netflix, for example, and understanding, wow, there are people who care about the planet and hunt. And so it started to be very confusing. And I would love to know, why do you think we have such a negative view on hunting?
Well, not ironically, I guess. I think my main answer to that is because of trophy hunting. I think it's twofold. I think trophy hunting is a big part of it. We see that that's not exclusively, but a very much male dominated sport, right? That we go on these big expeditions to hunt down big game, the bigger the better.
Yeah.
And then maybe we mount something, maybe we mount the head, and then everything else is wasted. And that's very off-putting. And I think that the killing for sport is a big turnoff for a lot of people, probably especially females.
Mm-hmm.
But the other part of it is, I think that we're so severely disconnected from our food sources, right? Many of us might grow a garden, and then when we grow some vegetables, we realize how much energy and effort actually goes into, producing a carrot or some chard or whatever, right? And there is a lot of effort and energy that goes into hunting and procuring animal-based nutrition. But with the animals, we get blood and we get guts and we get things that have to be cleaned and handled properly. And because we're disconnected from our food systems, we have meat that shows up in the grocery store in a pretty little sterile package. And I think that is also a turnoff. And there's nothing dirty or bad or gross about animal blood or animal guts, right? It's just the conditioning that we've had from our highly processed, highly industrialized food culture.
It's so true. Until, again, years ago. So I was a vegan years and years ago. It was the worst health state I had ever been in. And touching meat even was so, like a piece of chicken breast, something I was very, very grossed out by. And it's just a testament to what you're saying, how disconnected we are. And I didn't even know. I remember after I left university, I went to go live on these organic farms because I wanted to learn, how does my food grow? I had never seen Brussels sprouts or cauliflower in real life. And so again, this negative connotation with this, like this blood and guts and stuff of hunting and processing. How did you get into hunting, and even seeing as from a female perspective? Because usually we do associate it with a masculine activity.
Yeah, for sure.
Something that men do.
Yeah, for sure. And before I answer that, I want to congratulate you for challenging yourself. And I mean, talk about hormone health, not being a vegan.
Right?
Right. So yeah. I love to see when vegans challenge their own or anybody in a dogmatic, very specific diet is able to challenge themselves out of it for the sake of their cell health and optimal nourishment. Right. So congratulations to you. And I'm glad you got out of that template for yourself.
Thank you. It's been years ago that I was vegan and raw vegan, but I really appreciate that. And I kind of have a sense of excitement when someone tells me the same thing.
Yeah, for sure. I get you on that. So I grew up fishing. I have a dad who is also a conservationist and very involved in the outdoors. And he started taking me fishing as soon as he could. So I was taught to, put the worm or the minnow on my own hook, and taught to take the fish off my own hook, and, taught to clean it. So I was cleaning fish at a young age, and that did connect me to animal-based sources of nutrition and nourishment. So I'd say early exposure kind of broke down that blood and guts taboo barrier for me. We also did some frog gigging, which is like the step up from fishing. A little more skill is required, a little more hunt is a part of that. And cleaning frogs, it just helped me to get over it. This is what we would have done as traditional people, was have this deep connection to our food. Everything we would have done would have been in an attempt to procure, preserve, share, consume food, and tribally also, not just individually. So I got introduced to the idea of procuring my own food through fishing and frogging as a kid. And I wanted to do more as a young adult. My dad took me on one turkey hunt, and I always wanted more, but it is such a male dominated field that I really struggled with overwhelm and how to crack into it.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much involved between what you wear and firearms, or what you hunt with, and where you can hunt and when you can hunt. And, there's a lot of steps involved in getting there. And I felt super overwhelmed by that process. So I went from, a young adult in my very early 20s of wanting to hunt. I also started working on organic farms, by the way, when I was in my early 20s. So around that same time in my early 20s, started to want to hunt. And it didn't actually happen until my late 30s, when I got linked up with the group in the Kansas City metro area, Wilderness. And they have just blown the roof off of my hunting experience. So the first hunt that I went on with them was a mentored dove hunt.
Okay.
And they provided everything. I didn't even have to pay anything. Like, food was provided, camping was provided, firearms were provided, ammunition was provided, mentorship was provided. And it was just such an amazing experience because it was all females. Some of the mentors were males, and some of the chefs and kind of support people were men. But all the hunters and most of the mentors were women. And that just kind of broke down the barriers for me. All of these resources were provided. I could get an apprentice hunting license. I didn't even need to go through the conservation department for my hunting license. Yeah, and it was a wonderful experience. I made some excellent friendships and connections, and it was a great time. And I have been on a couple of other wilderness hunts since then. Have gained a couple of mentors through the program and learned how to hunt with a longbow, and found a shooting coach, and it's just been an excellent resource. So that's really what made hunting more achievable for me. And I am now able to go out on my own, take my kids out with me, and feel confident about being able to get into the field by myself and the steps I need to take to do it safely and smartly.
I find, and what I'm hearing is just the educational, then the experiential experience that really had you feel confident, not only going out there, but also just having the self-sustainable practice to say, I can actually source my own meat. I know where it's coming from. I know, where it is and how it's processed, all of that. So almost in a way, kind of backpedaling for those listening, and they're like still trying to wrap their head around hunting. What would you advise people to even think about and say, here's something else to consider?
As far as resources goes?
Resources and also mindset.
I think hunting and foraging and procuring your own food is the most natural, innate, ancestral practice you could ever do. It gets you in touch with your ancestor cells. It is still what you are biologically intended to do. And females did hunt as well in traditional societies. I mean, we're largely foragers and maybe hunted more small game, did some trapping, a lot of insect collection for protein consumption. But hunting was definitely not out of the arena for us. So I think that it's worth a try, at least. To You don't even have to harvest anything. Let's put it that way. You don't even have to harvest anything to experience the fulfilling, satisfying feeling that you get from going on a hunt. If you know somebody who hunts that would allow you to go out with them, you can go and at least have that experience and kind of get your toes wet without having to pull the trigger, so to speak, or harvest anything. Though I do think that anybody who consumes meat, I do think this is an experience they should have, honestly, to know what goes into taking another sentient being's life in order to nourish your own. Mm-hmm. I feel like it's the most respectful, ethical thing you can do. More for hunting that is done for your own sustainability, not for sport, not for fun, but for the sake of nourishment.
Okay, can you say more about that? Because I think there is that mental aspect, and I think there's a lot of, I want to say, propaganda about not eating meat and more soy-based products. And we know where fads and those kind of messaging have gone in the past. So it sounds differently now, but how do you get past, even if someone has never even killed a bug, and then they're like, oh my God, I'm going to eat this. I'm going to kill something else for my own nourishment. I'd rather just no one die in that process. What would you say about that?
Yeah, I mean, I would try to offer empathy first, and know that that's an understandable thing to feel and to experience, because it shouldn't be emotionally, psychologically, spiritually easy to take another being's life for your own. Mm-hmm. It shouldn't be easy. And if it is easy for you and you have no conscience about it, then something's not right there, right? So something's broken in that process. So, I used to have a farm, and we raised goats, dairy goats and meat goats and chickens, laying chickens and meat chickens and ducks and pigs, and did all of our own harvesting on the farm. And I would put it out whenever we were doing a goat harvest. Anybody who wants to come out and learn or have this experience, come join us. And often, almost every time, at least one or two people would come out and have this experience to watch this animal's life go out of it. I cried every time I would, take a goat's life for meat. I would tear up. It's not easy. It shouldn't be easy, but having that experience puts you deeply, cellularly in touch with not just the physical work that goes into harvesting animals for nourishment, but the emotional, psychological, spiritual. And so I would still encourage anyone that is struggling with that challenge to start small. Maybe start with fishing, maybe start with collecting insects and learning how to process those for nourishment, starting on a smaller scale and then working one's way up.
Wow, I felt very impacted as you were saying that, because I appreciate that you're saying, hey, it is a difficult task. No one's here saying that it's easy. And here's the process of connecting. And I just find that so many times we, again, microwave conditioned society where it's like things should be easy and fast. And no, there is this another sentient being, and there is this circle of life. I know it sounds cheesy, but it's the reality. And actually, on that note, we're talking about conservation and earth advocacy. How does that play a role with hunting as well?
It's so important, actually, and it's such a loaded topic. I didn't really get it before I started hunting. It was actually my hunter safety education class that I had to take in Kansas, where I live, before hunting, that I learned about why conservation efforts started and why they are what they are. So when we were kind of in our westward expansion, Wild West mode, at least in America, Oh my goodness, so many species were just decimated and over harvested and over hunted to the point of extinction and endangerment for many species. And it was just a total free for all. I mean, even, for sport of shooting birds, it didn't matter what birds you were shooting, just how many you could shoot in a day or in a week. And there would be these nationwide contests, just awful. And so we finally wisened up and realized we couldn't be self-sustaining going on this way. So conservation is really important to protect ecosystems, right? So you use the word or the term, everything being connected, everything's connected. And it's so true. If we look really scientifically at an ecosystem, everything relies on everything else, us included. We just don't realize it because we live in boxes with food that comes from boxes. And, we're so disconnected.
Yeah.
That we lose that perspective on how important these ecosystems are. So our continuance as a human species of overpopulating, taking over more and more wild spaces through our development, right, pushes animals in more and more confined spaces. And animals in confined spaces, just like us, become unhealthy, right? They're more prone to disease, their immune system functioning weakens. They're overgrazing. I'm thinking of deer right now, but there are other animals and mammals that apply to this. They're overgrazing. So then the plants and other wildlife are being more pressured. And then we lose soil nutrients and nutrient density in the soil. It's just a total ripple effect. So most of our conservation efforts are in an attempt to manage those populations. And it's kind of bittersweet because a lot of those populations need to be managed because of our continuance of overdeveloping wild spaces. Right. So managing overpopulation, and in some years with some species, making sure that animals, of course, aren't over harvested. So it seeks to maintain a balance in the local ecosystem. And it's incredibly important so that, our areas don't get overpressured.
Yeah, I also just find too, when we have a more local and sustainable approach to meat, or really, vegetables, anything, it's just, that's a whole ecosystem of its own. And then we're not, buying this conventional hormone pumped, antibiotic pumped, overcrowded meat. It's like this whole beautiful cycle. And that's why I think I started to get more interested in it, to say, well, if I can grow food and I can be more sustainable in this way, well, like what do I need to unlearn about hunting in that concept? So for anyone listening, even now, maybe having seeds planted, maybe they're not going to go and hunt in the next year, or maybe someone listening is actually on that path. What would you recommend to either points of a journey to say, hey, here's how you can get a little bit more education, or here's how you can start the process of, and you had mentioned fishing earlier as well. Is there anything that you think that people can take on and learn to become more self-sustaining and better stewards of the planet in this way?
Yeah, absolutely. Their sustainability is such a big umbrella. There are a lot of different things you can do. I moved from my 19-acre farm, in a stepwise fashion, to an apartment on a third floor with a balcony, right? So I'm in a totally different environment, and one that's different than what's my ideal, but it's where I am. So I'm trying to make the best of it. And things that I'm looking into are, I can still hunt, I can still fish, I can get out of my apartment for that. I'm going to pack my balcony full of all kinds of dwarf varieties of vegetables. Growing microgreens is a pretty easy, straightforward thing for people to do. Sprouting and seeds and grains. dehydrating and preserving food. That can easily be done in an apartment or a regular home. A lot of homes can have, chickens and backyard rabbits and growing small livestock. I've grown quail in an apartment situation, and rabbits. And I'm going to start vermiculture. So composting with worms in my apartment. They're really nice bins that are self-contained. They don't smell. You can compost at home, without a big outdoor compost pile. There's a lot that can be done still in urban environments. But, the way I got hooked up with hunting, I think I did a really simple, straightforward Google search for like women's hunting groups in Kansas or something like that. And lo and behold, here is this wonderful organization, Wilderness. And Wilderness has gotten me in touch with other female-based hunting and outdoors conservationist kind of female-based groups. And there are a lot of resources out there. And I think reaching out to your local wildlife department or conservation department and just being transparent and saying, hey, I'm kind of interested in this. What can I do locally to know more? On the Missouri side, here in the Midwest, the conservation department has a ton of free workshops and classes, many of which right now are being done virtually. So there are so many ways to get your toes in the water without having to be in the field, without having to harvest an animal, without having to go through that. If somebody needs smaller steps along the ways, I think just researching your local community and trying to find what resources there are is a great place to start.
I love that. I love that you have just given so many little ways that we can be more self-sustaining in that way. I don't think it comes down to drastic measures. It really is those little solutions of how can we, reduce or I guess rather increase just how our connection to our food and being closer in that way. So I love that. Thank you for that. And I'm curious if you have a favorite recipe that from your adventures, whether it's quail or rabbit or turkey, do you have something that you're like, oh, this is my go-to recipe?
Yeah, I've thought about this before, and I am a total foodie and I love to cook. And sometimes I cook very elaborate things, but I must say that my favorite meals have been the simplest as far as with what I've hunted goes. So on that first wilderness dove hunt that I went on, I'm going to give you 2 examples of favorite recipes, and they're super simple and therefore hopefully achievable. So I am a nose to tail advocate.
Yes, me too.
Very much so. So in hunting, when I've taken my son, for instance, on pheasant hunt, I'm going around and collecting all of the livers and the hearts and other parts that can be used, but that are discarded, right? Yes. That's where the most dense nutrition is. Yes. In the bones and the marrow. And our ancestors would have totally prized those bits and pieces because they give us the most energy. So my most memorable dishes from hunting have been made with heart, actually.
We love heart in our house. Yeah.
Yay. Oh, I'm so glad we met up. This is great. So on the dove hunt, this scenario was happening. I was watching the livers and the hearts get tossed aside, and I'm going, oh my goodness, like, no. And I gathered everything up and I actually just toss them in lightly in some olive oil because that was the fat that was available, and seasoned it with salt. I think I rubbed them with some garlic cloves and I put them on skewers. Nice. And there was a fire going and I seared them over the open fire. And I went around to 12 to 15 different women and the men that were there and encouraged people, come on, try this, and some people were like, yeah, absolutely, I'm going to try. And some were like, I don't know, I'm going to try it, but I really don't want to, kind of scenario. And I didn't get any complaints, and I got people to try this really nutrient dense part of the animal that connected them even further to their source of nourishment, right? So there's that. And then my first deer is a fun story. My wonderful mentor and close friend, Tana, she works for the Kansas Wildlife Department. She took me out on my first deer hunt, and I met her on that doe hunt, or on the dove hunt. And I shot my deer right where she told me to, and the shot went straight through the heart, which was great because it meant that the deer didn't suffer. It was a clean shot. It died pretty quickly. And I was a little disappointed though, because the shot blew out the backside of the heart. So I lost half of the heart, right? Making a good shot meant that I lost my favorite part of the animal. I'd rather it not suffer, so that was okay. But that same night, I took the heart, and as the deer was hanging before we processed it, but I did take the heart home and rubbed it in duck fat and a lot of sea salt and seared it on a really hot grill. And I don't think I've had anything tastier before or since. It's so memorable. Right. Like that was this animal's life force, and you can taste it. You can feel it. You can feel how much, not just nutrition, but spirit.
Yes.
Experience is in that heart,
Wow.
Its life force literally beat in and out of that space. And then to consume it is very powerful,
Yes. Yes, I think that, again, just being that removal, that's something that we've been incorporating in our home more, is kidney, heart, liver, and then now with our ground beef, there's with the organ meat blend. And again, years ago, I would have, organ meat? Are you kidding me? And I love that you have this such a deep connection and reverence. I find that the more I learn about hunters in this capacity, there's this reverence for nature, for the animal, for the earth, and it's undeniable when you hear people talk about it, even just you saying that. So yeah, for sure. I mean, without hunting, even when we eat macronutrient wise, let's just say between our fat, our protein, and our carbohydrates, we're balanced in a way that we're intended for cellularly, biologically. Mm-hmm.
You feel it. You feel better energized. You feel more balanced, right? So there's a similar thing that happens when we connect to these ancient ancestral practices of consuming the whole animal, being a part of the energy and the effort that goes into getting that nourishment to our table, right? You feel the depth of that in your cells, and it's what fuels me. It's what keeps me going back for more. It's because this is what I'm made to do. This is what all of us are made to do.
I find that so many, whether it's a fashion trend or whether it's a music trend, I just find that things always come back around. We go far away from it and then come back around. And I find that this way of living is coming back, because obviously growing up, or I think, just seeing some cookbooks in the 70s, is just so far removed, like all this like jellos and even now like Pop-Tarts, like all that kind of stuff is so far removed from how we are normally intending to eat to nourish ourselves, that when you have a piece of organ meat like that, like this is food. This is what I'm supposed to feel.
Yeah. Absolutely. I read a meme recently, and I can't quote it verbatim, but when I read it, I was like, yes, that's it. That when we eat healthy, it's called being on a diet, right? It's called a diet.
Yes.
But actually, everything else that we're doing with food and highly processed, high sugar, high hydrogenated vegetable oils, that's actually not normal.
No.
That should looked at as the diet, right? That's the experiment, really. And we've had 20, 30 years of it, 50 years of it, to be able to see now how it impacts our cell health and that it catches up with us. So yeah, very encouraging to see this reemergence of kind of back to landers and getting in touch with food. Yeah.
I might have seen the same meme. It was like this guy holding up a sign. It's like when you start eating healthy, people think it's a diet, but when you're eating junk food, people think it's normal or something like that.
Exactly.
Yeah. So,
yeah,
and
for sure.
I love that. Is there anything else that you would really just love to be able to share to people listening about the practice, the lifestyle of hunting, and really bringing light to whether it's a connection between the planet or ourselves and each other? What would you say, I guess, kind of message in a bottle to people listening?
I don't know if I can cuss on your podcast.
You can say anything. You can say anything on this show.
I don't want to like offend anybody, but
no, you're totally, this is the place to just, I think, real conversations away from the BS of, that's why I'm talking about self-sustainability a lot. So you can say anything.
Yeah. Well, you said in a nutshell, and kind of my motto or my quote for years has been, the further we get from nature, the more we fuck things up.
Yep.
Right. So, and that can be really basic, that can be a matter of being aware of the electricity that you run in your house, going to a farmer's market you don't have to grow any food to eat more sustainably. You can go to the farmer's market. My kids and I, last year in February or March, so it was definitely not even the beginning of the growing season for the most part in our region, we did 100-mile diet challenge.
Wow. Okay.
And everything we consumed came within 100 miles, was grown within, not just produced, but grown within 100 miles of our home. And boy, it was a powerful experience. It was not as convenient, of course, as going to the grocery store, but just thinking about eating locally, I think that me personally, I can get really overwhelmed by the state of the world and global warming and limited resources, and really the trajectory that we have that probably is not going to stop or slow down until it is forced to be. That can be really upsetting. And I feel like personally, the biggest impact I can make is trying to utilize as many local sources for my food as possible. So when we think about food that's, grown in one country and shipped and processed in another, and then shipped to another country to get to us, like, for all of that shipping is incredibly wasteful. And then for it to even
ripen and
your grocery store, and all of the lights and refrigeration and freezers that are run to run a grocery store, and then you drive your car to that grocery store to pick these things up, and it just goes on and on and on. And it's a very wasteful, from a resource perspective, it's very wasteful.
Yeah.
So I think just trying to get in touch with nature, especially food, and procuring food from local sources. Maybe you do one meal a week that is 100% local, or, a day a week, or whatever. I mean, it can be a fun challenge that doesn't have to be 100 miles only year round. There's other ways to incorporate this, but I do think that makes a pretty big impact.
I just love that you've provided so many action steps, maybe knowingly or not knowingly, but just through your own example to say that, because we both live in very cold climates. Like I live in Alberta, as I mentioned, so mostly winter, but we have greenhouses, there's farmers markets, there's YYC growers, or having a garden, like I'm growing tomatoes right now on the counter. And it's just one of those things where how can we do our part? And how can we take responsibility? Because it is our responsibility. It's not some governing force or anyone else that's going to take care of the planet. It's ultimately us. And it's through those decisions and fun challenges. Like I like how you did that with your family. And I'm very inspired, even having one day a week where it's only Alberta grown, for example. So I love that. And I appreciate that you are leading by example in that way. Are there any other resources or recommendations you have for those listening?
Oh, goodness. I mean, I have so many, because this is my passion. This is really what I do in my free time. Most things that I read or watch have to do with these topics, so I do have a lot of books and documentaries that I usually refer my clients to. Documentaries that are easy to access, that kind of goes through our food system, are, let's see, Fat Fiction, Fat, a documentary, and That Sugar Film. Those are all excellent. Anything you can watch by David Attenborough about the, climate crisis would be helpful. And there is actually a show about the 100-mile diet.
Yes.
And I believe that was done in Canada, actually. And that's really interesting. There's a book about it, the 100-mile diet. The book Eating on the Wild Side by Joe Robinson is wonderful. The Comfort Crisis by Michael Easter
I just got connected with him. Interesting.
Oh my gosh. What an inspiring person. And the book is just like, the book totally blew my mind. I was like, yes, all these things. Absolutely. Everyone needs to read this.
Okay, that's great.
It's all about, again, what we're biologically, ancestrally intended for, and our modern lifestyles have just flipped all of those practices upside down and created so many problems for us. And then the last one is Dr. Bill Schindler's book, and I've got to look it up real quick. Eat Like a Human.
Okay, I'll link.
Is excellent. Yeah. And then Bill Schindler did a show on the History Channel, and I believe it was called The Great Human Race. Yes. And that is also totally awesome. So Survivalist Kat Bigney, who is a female, and Bill Schindler, who is an experimental archaeologist, I think he's called.
Ooh.
Great show. Excellent book. Those are kind of my top favorite resources for extracurricular reading and watching.
I love it. I will link all of those. I'm going to add some of those to my list that I have not considered or heard of. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
And Amy, where can people get connected with you, ask questions, learn more about you?
For sure. I have an Instagram account. I actually try to be pretty low tech. I along with those ancestral practices, I try to not do a lot of social media or a lot of screen time. So my Instagram account is private, but when somebody requests to follow me, I almost always accept that. And my handle on Instagram is AMY_B_NTP. And it is mostly food and hunting related. But again, it's not an ample load of posts because I'm not on there a lot. And my clinic's website is atmaclinic.com. There's just a very, very, very brief kind of bio about me on that website. I don't have a personal website right now, but it is something I'm working on. So those are the best ways to find me right now.
I love it. I love that we can still reach you in any capacity in that way. So I appreciate that. Amy, I don't know how 45 minutes has just gone by, but it has. And I am so grateful for you joining the episode and really sharing your wisdom and your passion and really being an example of, someone who gives a crap about the planet and the animals and everything that comes along with being a great steward again. So thank you so much. Very grateful.
Oh, you're so welcome. And thanks for having me. And likewise, it's encouraging that you care about this stuff and that you're promoting it and advocating for it through your podcast. So thank you so much for having me. It's been a real pleasure.
Thanks, Amy.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much for tuning in.
Please give the show a 5-star review if you feel like you learned something new today. All of the mentioned links will be in the show notes. And also, are we connected on Instagram? Find me over at _lusciousliving_ and come say hi. See you next episode.